Well, welcome back to the Etihad Stadium. We're Not Really Here brings you post-match coverage of what we have seen at St Mary's in the Premier League. Southampton won Manchester City 0, and it is a defeat in such extraordinary circumstances for Manchester City over the course of the 90 minutes, where I think Michael Brown, who's alongside me with Paul Dickov as well, has written down a number of statistics that will make your eyes widen somewhat, that it finished by that defeat by a goal to 0 at St Mary's. And we're going to be spending the next 20 minutes or so with you here. Natalie Pavlek's also alongside to bring some of your social media comments to air. And, well, I'm going to let him stew on those statistics in just a moment, because, Paul, it's a rare defeat for Manchester City in that we see them so rarely, and yet, in those circumstances, even more rarely.
Yeah, we were talking before the game about Southampton's poor home form. You know, that's been blown out the window. Saying about Shea Adams not scoring in 29 Premier League games, first goal for Southampton, he's went and got that now. So everything that seemed to go against City tonight went against it. But the performance was great. You know, I've made one mistake just after the 15-minute mark, and we've been punished. Great finish by Shea Adams, and then after that, how the ball's not went in the net, I'll never know. You know, a combination of Alex McCarthy, the centre halves, the post, we've got to give Southampton credit for the way they've defended, but some of the football Man City played was fantastic tonight. It was as disappointing as it is not getting the result.
Well, I have a statistician alongside me. His name is Michael Brown. You've been having a look at some of what extraordinary things have been coming in. I mean, just start with the chances and the possession stats.
Well, I think it's the chances and opportunities. Manchester City created so much, 74% possession, which is very, very high away from home. 25 shots, you know, only 6 on target, but it's about the block shots. It tells you, yes, Manchester City created the opportunities, but full credit to Southampton for actually, there's 9 blocked efforts at goal. So they were throwing the bodies. They'll be delighted with that. But regarding Manchester City, Pep Guardiola will say, we've created him, it just probably wasn't our day. We've played well, we've got in good opportunities. But ultimately, when you lose to Southampton, it is not good enough for a team of Manchester City's ilk, unfortunately.
That's the story, isn't it, sometimes with Manchester City? When they do get beaten, it is often eyebrow-raising, the amount of chances that are created, and they just don't go in. Now, tonight, it was probably about the blocks and the heroic goalkeeping and the defence, rather than City spurning those chances, which I think if you look back 2 or 3 years, certainly the first season under Pep, chances have been created and spurned, but tonight actually probably wasn't that. It was just a heroic defensive effort.
It's one of them things that they could probably play to tomorrow morning and still not score. We've seen games like it before. We've both played in games like that. You know, no matter what you try and do, no matter how you're on top, it's just not going to happen for you. But I thought the two Southampton centre-halves were fantastic today. The two sitting in front of them didn't give City any room at all, really, to go and create the chances. And if anything, say at half-time, kept forcing us wide, and they were quite happy to defend inside the 18-yard box. But just a bit flabbergasted that one of them's not went in, really. But look, we've seen it many a time.
Paul, you know, obviously, the result's not ideal. You'll say the performance was good, but Pep Guardiola won't accept that. For me, he'll come out and he'll say, listen, we've done well, we've created lots of opportunities, but it's a bit of sort of a story of the season. It's just a little bit frustrating, isn't it, in times of dominating games but not winning them. And I'm sure that's what he'll be saying in the dressing room afterwards.
Of course he will, but I'm not saying that the result doesn't matter tonight, but everything's geared towards the Arsenal game on the 18th, and then obviously the Real Madrid game when that gets played. And you know, nobody likes getting beat, and certainly Pep Guardiola won't like getting beat, especially the amount of chances we've created tonight. But as long as everybody's fit and firing and ready for the Arsenal game and the Real Madrid game, I think he'll be more than happy with that. It's about getting game time. I think we've seen that with the teams he's picked already, getting game times into everybody else, getting minutes in their legs after the layoff, and trying getting a bit of fluidity into the play that they've got as well.
It's strange, because if you reflect back on what happened against Chelsea, which was the last defeat, but also coincidentally the last away game that City played, it was also a mistake then and a mistake tonight in the 16th minute when Shea Adams got that goal that we probably tempting fate a little bit too much, talking about the fact that Ralph Hasenhüttl had chosen a player who'd never once scored for his club, and he decided to do so tonight for the first time. But those mistakes, if we're talking about the fact that it wasn't necessarily chances spurned, which often is the story about City when they don't come out on the winning side, it's the mistakes which they do need to eradicate, because there are knockout matches coming up where you don't have the chance to resurrect yourself after them.
Well, we've seen the players getting interviewed regarding saying there is too many mistakes individually. So for all the good work, the work Pep Guardiola puts on in the training ground is just quite remarkable. We've seen how his team set up, how they belittle teams at times, fantastic performances, but ultimately these individual mistakes. Paul will tell you when you've been a manager, you set everything up and somebody slips, and you can't do much about it. But it's about the reaction. There was a good reaction from the players, which you would expect at Manchester City's level. But so this is Manchester City now. They don't accept getting beat. They just want, we don't accept that we expect always to win the games, and ultimately he'll be looking in that dressing room why he didn't do it, and he'll make people accountable. Yes, he'll say there was good performances, but we've got to do better.
Yeah, those statistics tell a story on one side. On the other side, if it's just one mistake and you're punished, it doesn't matter how many chances you create because that mistake has been punished. Let's talk to Natalie Pavlek, who's over there with some of your social media comments and commentary over the course of the last 90 minutes or so. Nat, what are people saying?
Yeah, thank you, Hugh. People are in fair being quite humble, I think, and quite fair to Southampton on the socials tonight. If you'd like to get in touch with us, we'd love to hear what your opinion on the game was tonight. You can use hashtag WNRH. So we've got the first tweet we're going to look at here is from JarPar27, who says, Alex McCarthy has definitely had his Weetabix this morning. Unreal. Obviously, other breakfast cereals are available. And yes, completely agree. I think he made, I'm going to say, 6 incredible saves tonight. So yeah, incredible from Alex McCarthy. We've got Tony Yates 9320, excellent, another excellent Twitter handle. Southampton's defence was simply brilliant tonight. Eileen Fuller says this is just one of those games. And then I completely concur with this one. XCXFXC1, most complicated Twitter name we've got, said, I'm absolutely certain that Paul Dickov would have shinned one in by now. And I agree. Get him on the pitch. Kibak's girl Emily says, Jesus is such a confidence player, forever rooting for him. And I think we all definitely agree with that. And then Blue in the Zoo, I love these Twitter handles. In fact, if you've got a Twitter handle you think I'd love, you have to tweet us in just so I can read it out. Just says it's one of those days, isn't it? And then Blue Wolf 09 says Cancelo has actually almost pulled a perfect performance tonight. Done absolutely everything expected. Hugh, love to hear what the guys think about that, about Cancelo's performance tonight.
Yeah, we'll come to that in just a moment. I would actually ask anybody with a Twitter handle that's incredibly difficult to say to get in touch, so that Natalie is put into a corner, which is all of her own making, let's be honest. Michael Brown and Paul Dickov alongside me here. We're Not Really Here is the show that tries to bring you as close to the action when you're not allowed to be, and I think Pep Guardiola and his team would quite like to come back home here and make sure that all the action is here right now. Pep Guardiola, for the first time in his career, managerial career, has lost 3 in a row. What I want to ask you about, Michael, is 9 defeats in the Premier League so far this season, and that's a strange amount, and 33 points dropped this season as well. It was only 30 points for the prior 2 seasons put together. Is there, because of what Liverpool have done, a bit of a kind of a sense of a lack of intensity that they are channeling now into all those knockout games? Because if you think about Liverpool and being an isolated incident, if you like, in that they were so motivated, almost like it was a final, like it was a knockout game. Can you see what we saw against Liverpool being reflected more likely than what's kind of gone off the boil, if you like, slightly in the Premier League of late?
I don't think you could say it's intensity from these players. You could see the effort there, the desire was there, just maybe that cutting edge. And it was a team that come up against that. It was tough to break down. And as I say, when you're desperate to try and score those goals, you can see the team trying to do that. The one thing we've got to take into account is the changes. You know, there's a lot of changes, people still not getting up to speed fully with minutes, etc. But it's just the mistakes. And through the season, when you're trying to build up consistency, that must change. And you know, I have every faith. And when the pressure was on against Liverpool, we've seen them really, really up the game. And maybe they need that little bit of pressure, these players, you know, that real drive. Because they've done so well for so long. The back end of last season, when the pressure was on, just an incredible run, wasn't it? And I think when the season's gone, the Premier League's not there anymore. Just that little bit extra. But they're trying, but it's just that little bit more.
I wonder if that actually bodes well, doesn't it, for the knockout games to come? And Michael mentioned it about being a manager, and when a mistake does happen, it's something that goes counter to everything that you've put in place, all the planning that you've done, all the tape you've been watching, all those kind of intricate details that you've poured over for hours and hours before a game. So how do you then react to it as a manager? Because you can't really go back, you can't relitigate it. You just have to kind of say, well, try not to do it again, because there's not a lot you can do about it at that point.
There's not a lot you can do about it, and sometimes you can't legislate for what happens. Now, when you're a manager, what happens out on the football pitch, you can train them as much as you want, you can let them watch as much videos as they want, you can talk to them about what you want them to do, but if somebody makes a mistake, but you've just got to try and forget about it and get on with it. You know, that mistake's gone, that Alexander's made tonight. You can't change it now, you know, and you've just got to look forward to the next game. And I think probably the biggest thing with Pep is the 9 games lost this year. You know, whether our expectation levels are that high because of what they've achieved over the last couple of seasons. You know, they've probably shown that they're a little bit human this year. But of the 9 defeats that they have had, it is probably individual errors that have let them down. The performances haven't really been that poor. You know, even Chelsea last week, I thought the performance was at a decent level against a good Chelsea team, and individual error led to the goal, and then again tonight. So it's just something they've got to cut out, and you know, experience helps you with that as well. But getting match time on the pitch as well. You know, I think maybe Zinchenko tonight not playing a lot recently. Maybe his concentration levels just dipped a little bit when he's tried to make that turn, and then he's been caught out by it.
The result was very different to Thursday, Michael, but the patterns of play that Manchester City were able to affect in and around a very, very packed penalty area. I appreciate on Thursday it wasn't necessarily quite as packed because the game was stretched like crazy, but City are putting together those kind of passages and combinations that Pep Guardiola works very hard for them to do. So what you saw from the kind of like the 74 minutes that City were behind, they were doing what they do well. There wasn't a sense, was there, that they weren't clicking. And I suppose then you have to pay tribute to everything that was put in place to stop them. But are you sensing that they are building that ability to kind of combine and fizz like you would hope that they would do?
Well, it's there. You've seen them combinations. You've seen the pattern of plays. It just comes down to the errors. Once you give that team the lead, they've got something to hold on to. That's give them a huge lift. And one thing I've found in the discussions of coming in the pitch quite often, when it's a compact unit in front, sometimes Manchester City have possibly not got through as much as last season. So in attacking areas, and when they've tried to force it, it's the counter-attack that they've been punished on. This is just totally a bizarre situation with an unbelievable finish from just inside, you know, their own half. So it's one of those. You've just got to say, listen, we've made the mistake, we've conceded. Where could we go to improve, to make those attacking sort of situations count? And that'll be what you'll be looking at, because you'll say it's nice, it's there. How do we just take it to another level to get through this particular block if we come up against it next time?
Yeah, that's probably a sense of what the expectations are like and how crazily high they are. You often get games like this where a team has all the ball, has all the chances, but can't quite break through. And normally you just kind of like brush yourselves off and think, well, that'll happen 2 or 3 times a season. But with Manchester City, the way that they've been setting those standards over the course of the last 2.5, 3 years, it seems quite so anomalous, doesn't it? Anyway, let's hear from one of the Manchester City defeated players. Bernardo Silva's been reacting.
Bernardo, from the high of the Liverpool win to the defeat here, what do you think went wrong tonight?
I mean, I honestly think we played well today. We created plenty of chances. We couldn't score them, and then little mistakes cost us the game. But overall, I think 88 minutes of the 90 of this game were spent on the Southampton half of the pitch. But yeah, congratulations to them. I think we didn't play a bad game. We started well. The second half, especially, we put a lot of pressure into them, but we couldn't score today. We couldn't finish our chances.
Is it a case that sometimes you just have to look and say, we did everything, but it just wasn't to be?
Well, I think we need to improve. We need to check the mistakes that we made today. The little mistakes that, for example, cost us the goal, and a few chances that they had. But I think overall, the way the team played, I honestly think it was good.
How hard is it to play against a press? Southampton pressed you from the off, and that's what the goal came from.
Well, all teams play in a different way. Normally we're used to teams playing against us very deep, and yeah, they started the game trying to press us high, and sometimes it's difficult because they're a very intense team, very physical team. So congratulations to them.
3 away defeats in a row now. Why do you think it is that you struggle away from the Etihad at the moment?
Well, I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. Of course, it's always better to play at home, a place where we're used to be. But no excuse to that. We need to improve next season if we want to win again the Premier League.
Your manager said in the league it's all about Champions League qualification now, with a focus on the Europa League, Champions League, sorry, and the FA Cup. But how important is it to iron out these mistakes now before you get to those games?
Well, it's important to try and win as many games as possible, so we boost our confidence levels and try to arrive to those games, to the FA Cup and the Champions League, especially the game against Arsenal and then the game against Madrid, in the best possible way.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bernardo.
Cheers.
Thank you.
So that's Bernardo Silva. We'll come to more of your social media messages in just a moment. Hashtag WNRH. I just want to ask the guys alongside me about that sense of expectation, because the way that the Premier League has morphed into this, you have to win 95 plus points to win the Premier League these days, or at least the winner does tend to have that amount of points. It used to be 10, 15 years ago that you would win maybe 20 games, maybe lose 6, and that would be kind of enough, and you'd win the Premier League. So games like tonight, anomalous games, wouldn't feel quite like that. They would feel like, oh, but sometimes that happens. You have a team who defends well against a team who are better than you, who just can't quite break you down. But the craziness of the Premier League and Manchester City standards mean that you watch that and you go, I can't believe it.
It is, but every time Manchester City do have a defeat or have a bit of a dip in form, it's so strange, because people are so used over the last few years of the levels that they've been at, you know, being the Centurions, winning the quadruple last year and domestic treble. So when you do get a season like this, it makes people sort of raise their eyebrows a little bit, because we're not used to seeing it. But I genuinely think, I was listening to Bernardo there and Pep before the game, I think Pep will be happy to get through these last few games of the Premier League without getting any injuries, maybe get a bit of confidence into the team, as in consistency. But as long as people aren't getting injured and we go into this Real Madrid game with a fully fit squad of players, because I've said it all along, even in the last 3 or 4 years, if everybody's fit in Manchester City, they can go out and beat anybody in Europe. And I think that's what the aim's going to be now.
Yeah, big question mark. I suppose the only question mark is Sergio Aguero, and whether if he misses the Real Madrid game, if City get through that, they're there for the Champions League knockout stages that follow midway through August. But it's the point, isn't it? It just feels so strange to watch a game like that, Michael, where most of the time, over the course of the last 2.5, 3 years, a goal has come. 2 goals have come. And it is an anomalous result, yes, but it's an anomalous performance when City barrage a goal like that and don't break through, because we're so used to it happening.
We are used to seeing them. We were sat here thinking, here it is, it's going to come, there's going to be a goal, and another chance, how does it not go in? But, you know, we've come to get used to Manchester City winning games, and that's because of Pep Guardiola. He's actually told us, he's demanded what he expects from the players. So there's nobody who drove it more than him. His standards are here. And that's, you know, we're sat here, we're not being critical, we're just saying he expects to win every game that he goes out with his players, and he'll be disappointed with that. He'll hurt when he gets beat. But yes, the aim is to get those players through. He'll be delighted that nobody is injured and they're in sort of good stead, ready for these games coming on. And the important, let's be honest, is the Champions League. So that's what the build-up is. They'll be disappointed about it, but you've got to move on quickly and learn from these mistakes.
I think the standards that they've set themselves and that the manager sets them have been so high that it's been ridiculous from what we've expected from Manchester City teams before. So I think when something like the result happens tonight, what does happen, that's why we're shocked a little bit, and it takes us a bit by surprise.
Yes, eyebrow raising is perhaps the best way to think about it at the moment. Natalie, what have you sensed from all the City fans all over the world getting in touch with you? Is there a kind of almost a resignation that things like this are so rare that you've got to accept that sometimes it does happen? Yes, really, it does happen.
Yeah, absolutely, Hugh. So please, you can keep getting in touch with us. Use the hashtag WNRH. And as always, City fans have good humour, no matter what happens. And we've had a tweet in from Joe Butters that says, I hate to say it, guys, but I think the title might be gone. I think you're right, Joe. But don't worry, we can still get the FA Cup and the Champions League. Dean Ball 55 has said you'll struggle to see a better defensive display than what Southampton have done tonight. And then we've got Liani Ollie, who says, it isn't a cold, rainy night in Stoke, but it's sure come close. Come on, City. And then we've got some more praise for Alex McCarthy from B Holland Sports, who says Alex McCarthy had the match of his life. Now, Hugh, I have got a tweet here for you, and I think it's going going to blow your mind. Rich Jolly says, Manchester City had as many shots in losing 1-0 to Southampton as Leicester did when they beat them 9-0. How's that for a stat?
Richard Jolly is a journalist that I think everybody on this panel will know. He is literally the best person for providing statistics that will make your eyebrows raise almost as much as the result might have done if you're a City fan this evening. Thank you to all of you for getting in touch. Hashtag WNRH. Let's focus on a couple of individual performances, shall we? One of them brought up by one of our tweeters, and that was Joao Cancelo. And he is a player who has yet to find his feet in terms of consistent performance. He has flashed, hasn't he, on occasion, and you kind of understand where the interest came from, because he is one of those modern fullbacks who attack, and they can not only run and run and run, which is the old-fashioned fullback, but they can also deliver, and he was particularly good at the way that he delivered balls in from the right-hand side today.
Yeah, he was on several opportunities. We've seen he likes to get forward, whether it be come inside, try and get a shot away. It's a great little turn for the ball, Joe, across to Gabriel Jesus. So he is trying to play more minutes, but ultimately he's got Kyle Walker in front of him, which has actually stopped these opportunities for how good Kyle Walker is. And he's going to have to just wait in line and wait for that opportunity. He's got that chance tonight. He's done well. But yeah, we haven't really seen the best of him. I thought we could have seen him on both sides, possibly play at left back at times, especially when there's been those injuries. But Pep Guardiola, for whatever reason, hasn't chose to even place him there, because I think when they were going to buy him in the summer, they thought ideal cover on both sides, and just hasn't worked.
Yeah, and higher up as well on that right-hand side, which is where we saw him more often than not because of the way that the game played out. He's a player, isn't he? He is that modern attacking fullback. And Pep Guardiola, if the pivot, if you like, the holding midfielder is the most important position, the fullbacks might be the second most important positions. He requires them to do a lot, and perhaps Joao Cancelo hasn't had opportunity to show that he can do as much as Pep Guardiola wants him to. But if you think about Liverpool last week laying down a marker for next season, there are players as well who have the opportunity over the course of these last few games before the matches that again mean something. They can do the same thing, can't they? They can lay down a marker to say, look, I want to have a bigger role next season.
And it's up to them to show the manager that. I thought Cancelo was excellent tonight, but I think the long and the short of it is that he's had Kyle Walker in front of him, who's been outstanding all season, and he's not had the opportunities that he wanted. He's a Pep Guardiola player, I watched him at Juve, I've watched him playing for Portugal, and he loves bombing forward, put some great balls in tonight. But not just Cancelo, I think a lot of the players, they've got to go out there and show the manager that they're ready for next season now as well. Not just for hopefully the mini knockout tournament for the Champions League, but going into next year, because I'm sure Pep won't be happy finishing second, even if we go and win the Champions League, so they do want to go all out next season to win the Premier League, and I've no doubt about it. If that means I'm bringing more players in to make them better, he'll do it, and getting players out, because he showed that he's done that before. Doesn't matter who you are, if he thinks you're not performing the way that he wants you to, he won't think twice about getting rid of you and getting somebody else in.
Perhaps the final thoughts that we'll get from our panel here this evening are ones that might have occurred to them before or might have been crystallised by tonight's game, because there is a sense, isn't there? We are talking particularly about where the Premier League is concerned, Manchester City laying down markers, foundations for what might come next season, because the mathematics of this season are against them. So, Michael, to finish tonight, what have you seen from tonight, maybe Chelsea as well, but particularly tonight, because it was such a strange set of circumstances that greeted Manchester City over the course of those 90 minutes, that you sense that Pep Guardiola will demand an improvement upon for next season? Will he assume that Liverpool will be as good, therefore that City have to match them and improve that much? Or will he sense that Liverpool will redress to the mean and everybody will be a little bit less kind of record-breaking over the course of the next 12 months?
You would certainly hope that Liverpool drop off slightly, wouldn't you? Because they have been unbelievable this season and set them standards. But, Pep Guardiola will want to strengthen the squad. I think we've seen when you make those changes, and you've had to make the changes now because of the lockdown situation. The goals, the games are all quick and fast. Everything's coming so quickly. So if we can get some signings in, strengthen the squad and start, fresh again, bit of consistency. He doesn't do second, Pep Guardiola. He will be out to make Manchester City champions yet again.
We'll have Pep Guardiola's thoughts in just a moment, but I want to go to Natalie Pavlek first because there have been so many messages coming in via all the platforms that We're Not Really Here is broadcasting on this evening. So perhaps you can set up Pep, Nat, with some of the thoughts that have come in from City fans.
Yeah, I certainly can. I can set up Pep with another excellent manager who's just tweeted in, and it is a former captain of these two guys. Andy Morrison has tweeted us saying 38 crosses in the box. Oh, for an Edin Dzeko as an option. We've also had journalist Oliver Holt said, love the second half of that Southampton City game. Two teams who don't have too much to play for in front of no fans, giving it absolutely everything. A credit to the players, great entertainment. And then the last one, and I'm going to finish on this one, I think it's a really great point. It's Roshan D99, which I presume again is in homage to our guests today. Can we take a moment and appreciate how good our 19-year-old Eric Garcia is playing? But well played, Southampton.
Yes, and not for the first time we would say that about Eric Garcia. To the gentleman for a final thought in just a moment, but first, the post-match thoughts of Pep Guardiola.
Pep, you had your chances this evening. How disappointed are you to be leaving St Mary's with nothing?
Yeah, for the players. So it was a little bit our season. Like we played really well, but in our few mistakes in our box, they punish us a lot, and after we create a lot, and we could not score. It was a little bit today a resume of what happened this season in the Premier League. So. Yeah, improve, and but in terms of performance, in terms of the way we played, there's nothing to say. So we attacked incredible well. 10 guys in the box. They scored a goal. They had one chance at the end, but no more than this. And we played really, really well.
How frustrating is it again to see a defensive error, a lapse of concentration perhaps cost you the points?
Now, concentration always is there. It's always we relate the fact that mistakes or lack of concentration is not like this. It's happened, it's football, and try to avoid it for the future.
You had plenty of chances. Was it just a case as well of it's not your night, it wasn't to be tonight?
Normally the people say it's not our night, but we have to create, you have to do it to be our night. And yeah, it's too much. It was the same. So we lost in Norwich, and they shoot 3 shots on target, 3 goals, and we shoot more than 20. We didn't score 2. So it was all the season. Many games was in that way. And when in the boxes you are not strong enough, so it's more difficult.
Are these the nights that you'll look back on and maybe understand why you potentially haven't won the Premier League this season? These are the games that have cost you?
Sorry, I understand.
Is it the games like Norwich that you look back on, these games, are these the games that you'll look back on at the end of the season as the reasons that you weren't able to retain your Premier League title?
We lost a lot of games, so in the previous seasons we were incredible consistent in we're consistent in our games, and after good games playing other ones, and no matter the competitions win. And this season in the Premier League we lost a lot of games, so but not for lack of game. So I think in general we play really well in most of the games, but when you have 20 shots on target and 10 players in the box, you have to score goals. So when one team create a lot of chances and they beat us, or you don't create after, we have to. It can happen, but it happened few times. Competitions we create a lot. We were there, but we struggle. So in a few they score a goal, and we do a lot, and we cannot score.
You've talked a lot about the fact that you're still in the FA Cup, you've still got the Champions League to come as well. How important is it to just put this behind you and win against Newcastle and build for the rest of the season?
Well, maybe it's going to help us, the situation to arrive in these key moments a little bit better, but we have to get better. The first goal in Chelsea was our present to them. And a lot of games, always we give them the chance. When the opponent do a good thing and score a goal, it's okay, but didn't happen, and we create enough. So the guys, they do really well, but we are not able to score.
Brilliant. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The radio's there, please.
So that's Pep Guardiola. That was the post-match football interview version of a long exhale, a sigh, if you will. I don't know what phlegmatic is in Catalan, but that was what Pep Guardiola was there. Just a final thought from Michael Brown and Paul Dickov alongside me. Michael, he knows, doesn't he? You said it beforehand. He knows, he is able to diagnose the issue, and sometimes he generally does have to just exhale and say, that unfortunately wasn't us. It wasn't good enough. I know why, but it just didn't happen.
I did tell you he'd say that. You know, I felt he would say we've played well, but ultimately we have to find an answer. Normally we do that, and we didn't tonight. We haven't throughout the season. Like he said, the story of the season, exactly what we've been talking about. There's been mistakes, and ultimately at the other end of the pitch at times when they've had to find something to unlock, to find these solutions, teams have been able to defend at times. And the expectations, the belief now, we believe that Manchester City are going to win week in, week out. This is football, it's the sport we all love, and that was what makes the Premiership so exciting. But he doesn't accept it. He says, this is the way we find an alternative, and he keeps driving that into the players, and come the summer, come whenever it may be, he will just keep striving for this success. So you take the positives, there was some good feels, some good passes, some good movements, but cut the mistakes out. Let's get a little bit better, a little bit sharper as the games continue, because you don't have to play everybody every week, because you can balance that out and then get ready for the big games and raise the games like they do when Liverpool, when it's really needed.
Yeah, and when you've got all those chances coming and it's still not working out for you, you sometimes go to plan B, C or DICKOV, which of course is just to get a late goal in the 95th minute or so and sort yourself out that way. And he didn't have you to call from, unfortunately, Paul, but you do get that sense, don't you, that even though that it is not quite the end of the season, Pep Guardiola is already looking back at what happened in the Premier League and kind of drawing his own conclusions. And the quicker that he is able to diagnose them, clearly the quicker City will be able to sort them out, whether it's players, staff, mindset, concentration, which of course he said it wasn't. He will know how to do that.
All of it. And look, I honestly think he wanted to come out there and say, that's gone, let's move on to the next one. But obviously he's got to try and explain himself, because he knows what's been wrong, not just tonight, but this season as well. He's said it in his interview there, and that 9 defeats isn't good enough when you look at what they've done the 2 previous seasons before that. So he's the best in the business. You know, he's unprecedented the trophies that he's won, and he'll continue doing that. So he'll know. He doesn't need me to go and tell him what to go and do in the summer. He'll know exactly, and would have known for a long time as well, because, you know, the club doesn't just plan for now. They always plan for what's going to happen in the future, and I'm sure that will happen in the summer.
Well, it's not for the first time that I'm going to quote Paul Dickov. That's gone. Let's move on to the next one. That is on Wednesday night against Newcastle. Back to the creature comforts of the Etihad Stadium. So rejoin us for that 5 o'clock for a 6 o'clock kickoff. We're not really here. My thanks to Natalie Pavlek, to Michael Brown, and to Paul Dickov, of course. It's been great to spend the evening with you, gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed. And to Natalie, as ever, as well, of course. So rejoin us for you won't be, we might not be, City will be, really here on Wednesday night at 5 o'clock. We'll see you then.